All right, nerds. I have Greg Tanaka with me live from California. Greg is one of the few candidates that is endorsed by the Forward Party. So I was excited to have him on the show. Welcome and hello, nerds. Greg.
Hello, nerds.
So, Greg, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you end up running for Congress? Where does your story kind of begin, and how did you end up here?
Yeah, thank you, Tom. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to have this conversation. So I'm born in LA. I went to Caltech in Berkeley. Uh, been a tech entrepreneur, done a bunch of startups. Um, I uh, I'm currently serving on the Palo Alto City Council, and actually running for office wasn't necessarily in my plans, but uh, what happened was in Palo Alto, the mayor at the time was trying to ban software development. And I thought, what we want to do is we want to have more innovation in our city, not less. But he felt that there were too many jobs here, so he wanted to kick out the tech companies. And I thought that was just the total opposite of what we should be doing. And what got me running for Congress was that I'm in the crypto space. So I think that crypto has a lot of potential. It's a way to align values. It's a way for people, especially with Web3, to have data portability. And what Congress has been doing is really coming down hard on crypto. So I thought that wasn't a good move. And so that's one of my motivations. My second motivation is I think what we need to do is we need to grow the economic pie, not just reallocate it. And the way you do that is use innovation. And as a tech entrepreneur, I think it's important that we make it easier for entrepreneurs because it's really hard actually to start a company and to make one successful. It's crazy hard. And so, kind of my second motivation is that um, unfortunately, the environment for entrepreneurs has been getting tougher, and I think we want to make it easier for entrepreneurs, not harder. So those were kind of like my two kind of motivations. But there's many other things I'm concerned about, but those were kind of like the first catalyst to get me rolling in this.
Well, you mentioned that when you first got involved in public service, the did you say the mayor of Palo Alto wanted to ban software development? I is that did I
Yeah,
hear you right?
yeah. So, Palo Alto is the place where HP started. It's a place where Google started. It's a place that, all these iconic companies came from. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of software actually happens in our city. But there's this kind of tech lash movement where people think that tech is evil. And I actually think that innovation is one way to make us all win, right? Rather than a zero sum game, we can we can use technology to actually make the economy more productive. And if the economy is more productive, everybody can win. But a lot of politicians have this kind of zero sum thinking where, what we got to do is just reallocate the pie. So, unfortunately, the mayor at the time felt that there's too many jobs here in our city, which causes too much traffic and parking problems. And so he wanted to use this idea that so Palo Alto is a really old city, like 125 years old, and 125 years ago, software development wasn't a real thing, right? It's more recent, and in our city, there's a list of allowed uses like laundromats, restaurants, retail,
Mm-hmm.
but software development is not one of those allowed uses. So he was trying to use that provision as a way to, kick out the companies. And he actually made the cover of New York Times. So if you Google, Palo Alto mayor, New York Times, you'll see this, article about this guy who, trying to kick out the tech companies.
Wow, that's crazy. So then what did you do to voice your opinion and get involved in that
Well,
discussion?
a lot of people asked me to run for city council, and I was like, busy startup kids, this and that. But that was for city council. That was my catalyst. That was like, oh my god, I can't believe the mayor's going to be doing this. So that's what made me jump in the ring. And the very first thing I did was I legalized software. So that was kind of my motivation. And it's similar to like the motivation for Congress, where the current Congressperson is trying to ban crypto. No, she voted for the infrastructure bill, which had this crypto provision that makes everyone in crypto a criminal. And I think that's just wrong. I think, not to say there aren't problems with crypto and it shouldn't be regulated, but I think it's a new technology. It's a way to make the economy more efficient, and we shouldn't be banning it. And likewise, The current congressperson is trying to force startups to amortize their R&D. So let's say you have $1 million in revenue and you have $1 million in expenses. You have to amortize your R&D expense over 5 years, which basically, for the first year of a startup, that means you're paying $800,000 in taxes, which is just killer for a startup because you're always tight on money. So it's roadblocks like that I think is not good, especially for a place like Silicon Valley. We want entrepreneurs here. We want innovation, because with innovation, people become more productive. The economy becomes more productive, and everyone is richer by that, by doing that. So we want to encourage innovation, not discourage it.
Yeah, I remember seeing Elon talk about how difficult it is for he felt to do business in California. Well, what is
Yeah.
your take on the climate for entrepreneurship and starting new businesses in California and nationally in general?
Yeah, it's a little bit sad, especially in the crypto space, that so many crypto entrepreneurs have moved to different countries like Dubai, Bahamas, British Virgin Islands, and so we're seeing this brain drain, and I don't think it's a good thing. I think what we want to do is we want to encourage the entrepreneurs to be here. Um, imagine the internet wasn't here. It wasn't, the entrepreneurs weren't here. They went to other countries. We wouldn't have the Googles, the Facebooks, the Amazons, right? You look at the U.S. economy. They make up such a big chunk of the economy from the market cap to the gross domestic product, and so that's the beauty of our country. Is our country, we have these amazing companies that never existed 20 years ago that are major producers now. We have companies like SpaceX. We have companies like Tesla, right? We have companies that were unimaginable before. Imagine a rocket shooting up in the air and coming back down, right? A reusable rocket, right? That's been science fiction for a long time, and we actually finally made it happen. Our country made it happen, right? With entrepreneurs, and so I think we should embrace technology. We should use it to make things better. I know some people fear technology, but overall, it's a net. It's a good thing, and it's really the trick is having the right legislation. Um, and unfortunately, like I'm not sure if you ever watch C-SPAN, watch our Congress people on TV, but so often they have no idea what they're talking about. They're not
Hmm.
users of technology. They don't know the underlying principles, and so when they enact laws, like for instance, the current Congressperson, she's trying to ban recommendation engines. She calls them dangerous algorithms. So recommendation engines are like, when you watch a YouTube video, it recommends the next video, or you buy something on Amazon, it recommends, oh, you should buy this. But can you imagine using the internet when there's like no recommendation engine? It's kind of like a throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? Not to say there aren't
Hmm.
problems and there isn't better ways of doing things, but it doesn't mean we should ban it.
Why do you think the current congressperson is so averse to technology and innovation, considering the district that they represent? You would imagine,
Well,
like, there's a
I,
lot of
I think this,
people.
yeah, I think this year she's 80 years old. She's one of the oldest Congress members in Congress today.
Hmm.
Um, I think she went to community college, but I don't think she ever got a 4-year degree. I think she's been in elected office for 50 years. Um, you know, I think what we need someone that's a little bit more tech savvy, someone that's more in touch with what's going on. Um, so I think it's background, right? The background's not there.
But people keep voting this person back in.
Yeah,
Why?
I think the issue is autopilot. A lot of people are on autopilot, right? They kind of vote for the same person because they have the brand recognition. But
Hmm.
um, this is one of the reasons why I really like the Ford Party, right? It's because it's going to shake things up. I think competition is good. We want competition. Competitions at all levels, but especially for politicians. You don't want the same incumbent year after year after year.
Yeah. So speaking of the Forward Party, one of the things uh, uh, that Yang had talked about was a coming crisis of people losing their jobs to automation,
Yeah.
and that being a very disruptive kind of transition. But
Oh,
we right now have the lowest unemployment rate in a while.
yeah.
What do you think he got wrong?
Well, I think there's displacement. I think technology does displace people. So you think about like um, the loom. way back when, right? During the start of the Industrial Revolution, and all those weavers who lost their jobs, right? The Luddites, right? All
Mm-hmm.
the Luddites who lost their jobs. So jobs are lost, but new ones are created, and many new jobs are created. So I think the trick is not so much to focus on the job loss, but focus on the retraining. Because what
Mm-hmm.
happens with technology is, yes, some people get displaced, but overall the productivity is increased, right? The overall economic pie is increased. And that's what we have to focus on is the economic, we want to increase the overall productivity of the nation. That's how we all win. Now, what happens though is that some people do get displaced, and how do we handle that? So I think the other key piece of this is education, and that's a key part of my platform, is that we need to make sure that there's a quality education for everyone, and not just 4-year degrees, but there's many ways of getting a good education. Like here in San Francisco, there's something called Lambda School. You can become a software engineer in, you know, 6 months, right? And there's great trade programs. So you look at a country like Germany, they give people skills, like for instance, how to fix cars, how to, like for instance, I'm trying to get someone to fix my driveway right now, right? I'm having a hell of a time. So
Mm.
you look at plumbers, you look at craftsmen, they can make as much money as a professional. So there's no, I think there's many routes to increasing the productivity of people. It's not just um, it's not just the usual. You got to get a 4-year degree. That's not just the only path. It's one of many paths, and we want to make it successful and low cost for people, so that as innovation comes in and there's new jobs created, people are able to go to the higher paying jobs. I think that's how we win. We don't win by keeping things static and keeping the productivity low. That's not how we all win. That just creates class warfare. I think what we want to do is we want to make it so that um, like for instance my background, I grew up in a really poor part of LA. My dad never finished high school, and my ticket out um, was education. I got lucky. I had a really great teacher early on, and that kept me sent me in the right path. But not everyone's so lucky. A lot of my friends never made it out. Right, I kind of lived in the hood, so to speak, and but what we want to do is we want to give equal opportunity for everyone, so that everyone has a chance to make it out. Everyone has a chance to succeed, and the path to success, I think, is there's many different ways of getting success. Right? It's not just not everyone has to go to Harvard to be successful. I just don't think that's true.
Greg, what are you hearing from your prospective constituents when you're talking to folks in the district? What's on their mind?
Well, a lot of what's on their minds also on my mind. One of the biggest issues that people have right now is inflation. A lot of
Mm,
people are really worried because inflation is devastating, especially to people on the bottom. The average American family has lost about $10,000 of wealth every year because of inflation. And when you debase our currency, it um, you're purchasing. So the big problem with inflation is this. First of all, the people on the bottom get hurt the most because most of their income is in cash and most of the wealth is in cash. So um, it's like a regressive form of taxation, right? It's one of the worst
mhm,
forms of taxation. So that's something that really concerns people. Here in our area, it's $6.50 a gallon for gas, right? This is the cheapest gas. So it's crazy expensive. Some places $7 already. So it's very expensive. So people's income is not going up as fast as the expenses. So it's really hard for people. The second thing is it's climate change. I think climate change is a big concern. Um, I serve on the Santa Clara County Water Board, and we're having the worst drought in 1,200 years, right? 1,200 years. Just think about it. That's before the Mayans were here, right? So it is basically California is turning into a desert. So people don't think climate change is real. Um, just look at your water bill, right? The water bill is astonishing now. Um, Education is also really important, right? I think we live in a very high tech area. Everyone recognizes that you need quality education in order to be successful. And healthcare, that's the other thing that's a big concern. Healthcare costs have exploded. Um, if you look at the quality of our healthcare in our country and the cost, it's relatively expensive, and the quality is so-so. So we need to do a lot better than we are right now. We need to increase the quality. We need to reduce the cost. And one way of looking at that is looking at other countries. So one of the models is Switzerland. You look at Switzerland, relatively low cost, relatively high quality. So that's another thing that really concerns our constituents. Um, and some other things that's common is things like crime. There's been a lot of kind of I'm in San Francisco right now. We have a 536% increase in anti-Asian hate crime in our area. Um, Pretty crazy, right? This is year over year. So that's another big concern that's come up. So those are some of the top ones, but there's a bunch of others that people have talked about as well.
Yeah, no, those are hot ones for sure. What would you advise we change in terms of healthcare?
Ah,
It feels like we talk about it every election, but like, what would you want to see done?
yeah, yeah. Well, I think for healthcare, um, if you look at what percentage of healthcare goes towards medical professionals in our country, versus insurance companies versus administration, it's relatively low compared to other countries like Switzerland. So what Switzerland does, and it's a really interesting model. What they do is they force everyone to buy their own health insurance. It's kind of like if you want to drive a car, you have to buy car insurance. But what they do is they subsidize. So if you're poor, they basically 100% subsidy. So it's totally free. And if you're really rich, you basically get no subsidy. So there's this kind of like scale. And because everyone has to shop for their own health insurance, versus like in our country, health insurance is mainly provided by the employer. And because it's provided by the employer, there's not much shopping around. Right? It's not like the auto insurance industry is crazy competitive. People like they have to like I mean, the margins on auto insurance are nothing compared to health insurance,
Hmm.
and it's because there's so much more competition. There's so much more shopping around on car insurance versus health insurance, and so in Switzerland, this is one of the reasons why the margins for health insurance and as well as administration is much lower than in other countries like in the United States. So it's an interesting model. It's actually what Obamacare was supposed to be, right? But we never quite made it there. So that's one way to do it. The other factor is prescription drugs. So this is one of the reasons why I'm running as well. So my mom's a diabetic. She has to take insulin. She's retired. She's not rich, and the current incumbent is the number one recipient of big pharma. So she gets more money from pharmaceutical companies for her campaign than any other person in Congress. And as a result, she's always trying to ban pharmaceutical generics. So usually what happens is when the patents expire on on drugs, there's open competition, and that drives down the price. Now I'm all for making sure that we invest in the R&D to produce life-saving medicines. We want that, but at the same time, after the patents expire, the generic should be allowed to come in to reduce the cost, so that the people, right, the people that need it most are able to get access. I think that's really critical. And so, I was canvassing around my area. I just happened to knock on the door of my daughter's middle school math teacher, and he told me that his mom had to pay $20,000 for Crohn's disease drugs. $20,000. That's a
Hmm.
lot of money to some people, right? A lot of money to me.
Yeah.
So, so I think those are some of the things that we could do to try to make this healthcare system a lot more efficient.
So I think that the incumbent is Congresswoman Eshu, right?
That's right. Yep.
So she has been in Congress since 1993.
That's right.
Why? What are you doing to kind of break that trend? Because it seems like
Yeah.
inertia is with her.
Inertia. Yeah, inertia's with her, absolutely. So one thing I do is I knock on hell of a lot of doors. I think I might have outcomped everyone together. So that's one thing, right? Because to me, in order to properly represent people, you have to truly understand people's issue. And if you just raise a bunch of money and send a bunch of flyers out, you can't really understand people's issues. So one thing that I've done is I'm a real big believer of canvassing, and that's something that I've done a ton of. So I really understand the voice of people. I understand the issues and trials and tribulations that people are going through right now. And there's a lot of people who are really hurt. COVID has hit a lot of retailers. A lot of people lost small businesses have been devastated, and they're still trying to recover. So, so I think that's one thing. It's just kind of a better ground game. But I think the other thing is um, this is Silicon Valley. There's a lot of people in tech here, and to be honest, I think her entrepreneurial stance is not been. I think well, it was let me be a little bit fashionable to bash tech companies, right? And bash tech entrepreneurs, that's a fair number of people of their constituents in our area. So,
Hmm.
and I think um, I think what's really important is also representation. So if you look at what is Silicon Valley, a lot of people in Silicon Valley are in tech. A lot of people are, you know, have like startups or things they want innovation. Um, they if you look at like the profile, right? I'm probably more like the profile of most people in Silicon Valley than Eshu right now, right? I think Eshu, she's basically a professional politician in office for 50 years, and I think people want to see change. So when I knock on door, a lot of people are very excited about the campaign.
Right on. Tell me, like, when if you won and you got to DC, where would be like the first big issue that you'd want to lean into and have your voice heard? What would there's so many things that you discussed already. If you had to kind
Yeah.
of narrow it down, what would you
Well,
do?
I believe climate change is one of the biggest existential threats to humanity.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of talked a little bit about the drought. Um, the current incumbent, I'm very data driven. I'm an electrical engineer, computer science, right? I went to Caltech, Berkeley, Stanford, right? And I really believe in making data driven decisions. And um, the current incumbent is very anti nuclear. He thinks we shouldn't do it. But if you look at data, if you look at how many people have actually died through all the nuclear disasters in all of history, Fukushima, Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island.
Mm-hmm.
Less than 100 people died worldwide for all of history of nuclear power, right? You look at how many people die each year from the burning of fossil fuel. We're looking at 8 to 9 million people a year die for the burning of fossil fuel, right? So it's 100 people versus 8 to
Mm-hmm.
9 million a year, right? So the numbers to me are very clear. We have a power plant in California, Diablo Canyon, which is on the coast of California. It already desalinates water. So the proposal from Stanford is that we expand Diablo Canyon to, so during the day, California actually produces more renewable power than we could use. So during the day, we use nuclear power to desalinate water, and then we pump that fresh water using the high power transmission line easements that we have to Los Angeles and to up here in the Bay Area. So we could solve the 1,200-year drought that we're having right now. Plus, at night, rather than burning, you know, natural gas, which throws more carbon in the air, we can use carbon-free nuclear power. So this will help slow down climate change, and this will also solve the devastating drought that we're going through right now. So that's one of the first things we should do because, climate change is not something that we can't just. Climate change is now. Okay, people think that it's 10 years from now or 20 years from now. No, it's right now. Right when it snows in the Sierra, it's so warm now that the snow melts instantly. Right,
Hmm.
our water reservoir in the Sierras is going away, and so we can't wait. We got to act now. And the great thing about nuclear power is that there's now small modular nuclear reactors where you could, instead of having to, do cast concrete domes right on site, you could actually build this stuff in the factory at a much lower cost than ever before. But what it means is that we have to have much better policy and regulations. We can't keep throwing monkey wrenches into the you know the permitting process of nuclear power, right? Because that's why it's so expensive right now. It's because we basically make it crazy impossible to do nuclear. And what that's doing is it's throwing more carbon in the air. It's causing our climate to warm up more, and that's not acceptable. I mean, I have kids, and I worry about their future, right? We want to leave a better future for our kids than we found it, right? But as the planet warms up, California is one of the biggest breadbaskets of the nation, right? But as we're running out of water, that's going to be in peril. So we can't wait, and this is why I think we should act right now.
So, Greg, I'm with you on nuclear and climate. I'm curious what your thoughts are on foreign policy. Right now we have, I guess, obviously we have the war in Ukraine.
Yeah,
We have like there's been constant sort of gathering tension with China.
yeah,
Um, what's your take on the Ukraine situation and how would you vote on that? Because no, I think a lot of people are starting to wonder like what's the end game here? How long
yeah,
is this going to go on for, and is this really good for the Ukrainians to be in a permanent war?
yeah. So I've talked to a lot of people about this, and when I knock on doors, this comes up as well.
Mm-hmm.
Not as popular as inflation, but something comes up. Um, so we look at World War II. We look at what happened with Hitler, right? If we
Mm-hmm.
had stopped Hitler earlier, there probably wouldn't have been as much devastation or deaths as there were. So I think that you got to make sure that we keep that in check. I think that's really important. We don't want another Hitler coming about. I think that's really important. But again, we also don't want to have endless war. So we also have to think about what is the end game going to look like on this. And so I think we do need to have negotiations. This is also a very expensive war, right? You look at all the money that we've been putting into
Mm-hmm.
Ukraine. So that's something we have to also think about. But the other thing that I think we have to think about is China, right? I think so. I used to have an office in Shenzhen, so I used to go to Shenzhen. Shenzhen is like the Silicon Valley of China, so I had an R&D office there. So I would go there quite often, and China is as they embrace more of a market-based economy, they've really boomed. And I think that what we want to do is we want to have more free trade, not less. I think I think we want to try to lower the antagonism internationally. I think when countries are good trading partners, they're less likely to go to war with each other. And so I think we want to, um, we need to figure out a way to. I almost see us going backwards right now in terms of globalization. Globalization was because it lowered the cost of goods. Everyone became richer because of that, right? Because countries that were good at produce things, and other countries that were producing other things, produce those things. And by exchanging, by trading, everyone wins, right? This is what I'm saying. Like it's like we grow the pie for everyone, and I'm a big fan of that kind of concept. And so I think we want to get more towards that. I think unfortunately, um, I think some of the policies that kind of cut down free trade was not a good thing. It basically makes everything more expensive for everyone, and I think that's the wrong direction. But at the same time, we also have to look at like with China, for instance, there's also intellectual property theft. So I come
Mm-hmm.
from the semiconductor industry, and you look at all the IP theft that's been happening. You also have to kind of solve that problem. So it's not so simple. It's not just one thing or another. There's no magic bullet, but we have to understand what's going on. China itself has been investing big time. They want to be number one in so many different areas, in semiconductors and fusion and machine learning. And so we also have to make sure that we keep up, that we stay strong as a country. But in general, I think free trade is a good thing. It reduces the chances of war. Um, so yeah, there's no easy solutions here, unfortunately.
Yeah, and if we kind of bring those two topics together, climate change and free trade or more trade with China,
Yeah.
what do you think is a reasonable expectation for China's participation in reducing carbon production?
Yeah. So I mean, that's something we have to look at really closely because um, free trade is good in terms of economics, but it's also in some ways shifting pollution, right? So maybe some of the pollution that would have happened here happens in China, but we live on one Earth, right? We're like spaceship Earth, right? You've seen that picture of Earth from the moon, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
actually not that big of a planet. We're 8 billion people right now, so we have to really be conscientious about not just solving climate change in our own country, but how do we do it globally? So I think there needs to be conditions about like the way we're going to solve this climate change is we all have to work together. All the countries have to work together. And it can't be like, oh, your side of the ship's sinking. No, it doesn't work like that. Global warming, climate change affects everyone, right? So, so I do think we want to raise the environmental standards everywhere. And the good news is that I think even people in China, are kind of tired of the pollution as well. So they're starting to become much more green as well. Like I know in China they're trying to plant a bunch of trees now to stop the Gobi Desert from gobbling up the country, right? So I think that's a good thing. But at the same time, you want to make sure the environment's protected, and also like things like Taiwan, that's also really critical. Taiwan, semiconductors are produced there, so I think
Mm.
we want to make sure that that remains independent, and also I think that we should probably look at onshoring some of these key components like semiconductors. I think that's critical. So we want to create the incentives that to enable that to happen.
Well, Greg, we actually have a question from the audience from the live stream right now.
Sure.
Jeremy Salmons says, I didn't know about this, but what's
I
your
do know
take?
about this.
Okay,
I
the
do know about this.
OpenSea Insider. Yeah, what happened and what's your
Yeah.
take?
Okay. Yeah. So let me give your audience a little bit of a background on this.
Mm-hmm.
So if people don't know, OpenSea is probably the largest NFT marketplace. It handles Polygon and Ethereum. Ethereum being the major one. And an employee there, what he did was he would front run stuff. So he knew which NFTs were going to be featured, and he would buy them
Mm.
ahead of time. So it's basically insider trading. Um, so um, while I'm definitely a pro crypto fan, I don't think we want crime. We don't want scams. We don't want people front running. We want free markets. We want transparent markets. We don't want people taking advantage of others. So I think the prosecution of this guy is right. I think he should have done what he did. It's basically a crime. Um, and actually, I'm not sure if it's technically insider trading. I think it's um, I forgot the exact term, but basically misusing proprietary information.
Yeah.
But he shouldn't. It's like someone. It's like someone working at a shoe store and he knows what shoe is going to be featured in the window front, right? You should take
Mm-hmm.
advantage of that to buy that shoe ahead of time because you know the price of that's going to go up. That's just criminal, right? But it doesn't mean that we should ban crypto, right? It doesn't mean that, like in the infrastructure bill, Bitcoin mining should be criminalized. It doesn't mean that when you sell an NFT, that should be criminalized. Or like, for myself, like I'm a Solidity developer. So if if in the infrastructure bill, you have to report all the counterparties. So when you're mining Bitcoin, you have to report the real name, the social security number, the address
Mm-hmm.
of all the people involved in that block that you're mining, which is impossible to do. So it should be crazy legislation like that, right? Um, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that we should let crime like this happen, right? We need to prosecute it. But the other big problem with crypto right now is that with the crypto regulations is that there's 7 different agencies in the country, in this country, that regulate crypto, and the regulation is kind of vague, overlapping, and conflicting. So we need to kind of centralize it so that we can allow this kind of innovation to happen. Because right now, you talk to SEC, you get one answer. You talk to FINRA, you get another answer, right? And so it's really hard to know what's going on, and that's going to block innovation. And also, all these kind of anti-crypto legislation is causing all these tech entrepreneurs to leave the country, and that's not a good thing. It's not good for our country at all.
So, Greg, you mentioned that you're participating in all the Web3 stuff. Do you
Yeah,
see a role for Web3 in how government works, and where do you see the opportunity?
yeah. So for our campaign, we actually formed a DAO, Tanaka DAO. So we issue NFTs. So usually when people donate to a campaign or volunteer for a campaign, you get like a thank you email, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe another email saying donate more. But what we do is we give people NFTs. And so you can imagine, like, if you got an NFT from Obama, um, now that he's president, you got an NFT from his first campaign. Now he's president, it's probably worth something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a way for people to get participation. But also with NFTs, there's a sense of community and also transparency. So we formed this DAO to basically make sure that the campaign only gets um, KYC money because there's a lot of regulation around campaign
Mm-hmm.
financing. So we only get legal donations. But it's also a way for people to actively participate. Because I think the really neat thing about Web3 is alignment of incentive. Because with Web, okay, just I'm not sure if your audience knows, but so Web 1 was basically like read only. It was kind of like Yahoo in the early days, right? So it just all the content was there, you just read it. Web 2 was read and write, right? It's kind of like user generated content, like Facebook or Twitter, where a lot of the content is generated by the people. And then Web 3 is kind of like read, write, own, right? So rather than it's like if you want to leave Facebook or leave Twitter, you can't because all the data is there, right? With Web 3, the data is owned by the users. So um, you could go to any site and your data goes with you. There's no import or export. You own the data at all times. And what that does is, first of all, you have more ownership of your data. So I think that's better because you have control about what's going on, and you can control how that's monetized. But better yet, um, you know, right now, like with software as a service applications, it's this friction of signing on. You have to kind of input your data in, you got to set it up, you got to put your credit card number in, you got to put your address, and you got to do all this sign-on type stuff, right? And with Web 3, there's none of that. You just connect your MetaMask wallet, and there you go. So it allows a lot of innovation. And what I predict is that all the Web 2 stuff you see right now, like the Twitter, Facebook, all that kind of stuff, will eventually become Web 3. And the great thing about that is it also allows more alignment of incentives versus Web 2, because the data is not owned by the company, it's owned by the user. And it gives the user a lot more control. So, a lot of people think of crypto as this, tokens, right? Like Bitcoin or Ethereum, right? But it's actually advanced to where with Web3, what's happening is crypto is being used to create software in a much more efficient manner. Like for instance, there's the idea of composability. So you can, like let's say for instance, you use QuickBooks, right? But then maybe in QuickBooks it doesn't have the kind of analysis that you want. You're kind of stuck. You have no choice. You can try to export it out and try to get into another application, but you're pretty much stuck. But with Web3, you could hook up your wallet to another financial application, and that can give you the analytics that you want. And so there's an idea of composability where applications can build on top of each other. And so I think that's something that's really powerful with crypto Web3 is that it allows software to be built faster on top of each other, and it gives users more control of their data, and also alignment. So these tokens that people use, they can be used to incentivize people. So for instance, you think about the early days of Twitter or early days of Facebook, the people that were first on there, they don't get much of an advantage, right? They don't get any real value back from the company by participating early on when their platform had no one on there. But with Web3 software, they could get tokens that incentivize them to participate, and they get rewarded. So as the company does better, as the protocol grows, so to speak, they also benefit from it. So there's alignment of incentives that we never had before, and this is an exciting area. This is probably the next big boom for technology. Is this kind of the Web3 technology.
And do you see any of that technology making its way into how government operates, or is it more in the private sector that you'll see
No,
this
I
innovation?
think this is going to touch every element. So, like for instance, if you look at the Copyright Office, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's centralized, right? But theoretically, you could decentralize it. It could be all on the blockchain. Think about NFTs. Maybe they should all be NFTs, right? It's more transparent. You can see exactly where things go. It's faster. It's open 24/7, right? It's never down. So I think a lot of what the government does can be um, used on Web3. In fact, I think it's better because the data belongs to the people versus the government or some company. So I think it's a way more alignment. It's actually um, way more aligned to the ethos of this country. Our country is about freedom, right? It's about individuality. It's about property rights. It's about um, being able to control your own destiny. And Web3 kind of is so well aligned to that versus the current models, right? Where all your like if you want to leave Facebook, you have to leave all your photos behind, right? All your friends behind, right? Or if you're on Upwork, right? You have to leave all your reputation behind. You're kind of locked in. But with Web3, you can take that with you, and that's the power, right? Is that you have this freedom that you never had before.
Greg, one last question before we wrap up. This has been a very nerdy and super thought-provoking conversation. Like, let's make believe that you're in Congress
Sure.
and we go into a extended recession. What do you think is should be the government's role in that? One approach is to kind of stimulate the economy with more spending, but we
Yeah.
may have an issue with inflation already, so that
Yeah.
you might be nervous about that. I mean, I'm curious, what do you think government should do in a different economic climate, assuming that things kind of get a little bit negative growth?
Yeah. So I do think in down markets, it's important for the government to step in and stimulate
Mm-hmm.
things. But when you overstimulate, right? So fundamentally, inflation happens when you print more money than you produce. So if you just print more money, you're not really helping. Okay, it's not
Mm-hmm.
helping. You're okay. So fundamentally, what you have to do is you have to increase the economic productivity of the country. That's what you fundamentally have to do. So what that means is you need to give new skills to people to be able to get new employment. to get new activities that bring value to the economy. So I think a lot of investing in the people, in the education, in the skill sets of the people, I think that's really important. There's also innovation, right? Investing in innovation, because if you look at who are the major employers, some of these major employers are from companies that never existed before, right? You look at Amazon, for instance. I think we have 3 million people work there now. Some amazing number. I forgot the exact number, but it's a large number of people. So, um, we want to encourage startup formation. It's actually a really great time to start a company during a recession. And unfortunately, if you look at the stock market right now, I think we already have a bear market, right? If you look at the tech sector, you look at the S&P 500, we've already hit the minus 20% mark. So, unfortunately, the economy really follows the stock market, so we may already be headed in that direction right now. So it's something that we have to worry about. It's one of the reasons why I'm very concerned, and why I think we need to take proactive steps to get ahead of this.
I love it, Greg. Congrats on all the traction, and
Thank you.
so on June 7th, does it go to like a top 2 race after that, or how does it
Yeah,
work?
yeah. So in California, it's called a jungle primary. So the top 2 people make it; they go further. So hopefully, I'll be one of the top 2, and
Yeah.
um, I'll love it if people could come out and support. If you're in the district, so my district is from Pacifica all the way down to the Santa Cruz County line, to the top end of San Jose, to the bottom end of Redwood City. It's like totally gerrymandered. It's like it looks like an ink blot. It's like I have to look at a map because it's like block by block is in or out. Um, but even if you don't live in a district, you can help share our social media posts. You can donate to the campaign, of course. You can volunteer remotely. So there's many ways to participate, even if you cannot vote. But I think what we need to do is we need to have people in Congress that are a lot more tech savvy, or kind of, as Tommy says, we need more nerds in Congress. we need people. We need people who know what they're talking about, that know about technology, that want to promote innovation, that want to grow the pie so that everyone can win. There's a great saying in crypto called WAGMI. Do you know what WAGMI is?
No, tell me.
Okay, we're all going to make it. Okay, so there's a famous. So, so in crypto, people love to sign off by saying the things, we are all going to make it, right? And I think from non-tech people, non-entrepreneurs, it's hard to think about that, right? Because it seems like life is a zero-sum game. The only way we win is we take from one, give to another. But as entrepreneurs, we know that's not true. As entrepreneurs, we start from nothing, literally nothing, right? And I've done that several times. You start at a kitchen table with nothing, and then you grow something that can be worth millions, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, right? And society's help, humanity's help, right? Like for me, I'm just think about this. I'm able to do this call standing on the street of San Francisco with my smartphone, right? Imagine that. At one point in time, you had to do this in a studio, right? You had to have a whole bunch of people involved, and now you and I are able to do this. And think about the productivity, right? That's enabled by this. And this is what I'm talking about. We want this kind of innovation. We need nerds for humanity. That's what we need.
Amen, brother. Well, look, whenever I walk my dog, I see a Greg Tanaka sign in the neighborhood. I might have to
Uh,
put one. I might have to put one in my
oh,
front lawn.
I need to get you a sign. Where do you live?
I live in Palo Alto, near
Oh, okay.
Rinconada Park. Yeah.
You're my constituent. I definitely need to get you a sign.
Well, the
So
good news is I voted early a few days ago, and I remember seeing you speak at an event where Andrew Yang was there last year, and so I did already vote for you.
oh, thank you so much. Thank you for
But
your support.
yeah, you bet. But I didn't know that I could get an NFT if I donated, so I might have
Yes,
to
yes.
look into that.
Every $200 get you an NFT, and we have 10. So we call it the Crypto Congress Takeover. It's on Polygon, and basically every $200 gets you an NFT, and each NFT gives you a vote on a DAO. So more NFTs you have, more votes you get, and and so basically the NFTs get issued to our donors, and they get issued to our volunteers, and so. So it's kind of like memorabilia. There's also a way to build a community. It gives you access to certain events for free, and they're cool looking. Each one of them is unique. So it's basically like a PFP profile pic of me.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, let me show you what it looks like. I'm going to an event later, so let me show you
Yeah, let's see it.
what the button looks like. So it looks like this.
I like it.
Yeah, yeah. So in fact, we're looking at making unique buttons for every single one of them, but we haven't done that yet. But
Wow.
that's something we're thinking about. So,
You know,
but it's a fun way to get involved, and it's I think literally we're the only campaign doing this kind of stuff in terms of
I
a
love it.
campaign DAO. There've been other campaigns that have done NFTs, but I don't think anyone has ever done a DAO focused on a campaign. And by the way, for those of you that don't know, a DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization, and what it is you can think of it like a corporation. A corporation's bylaws, but in software, so that just like, for instance, you don't have to trust that if let's say I give you a Bitcoin, Tom, you don't have to trust that that happened. Software does it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the same thing with DAOs is that you don't have to worry about trust the people are following the bylaws. It's by software. Software forces the bylaws to be followed. So it brings a lot more trust among people. And in fact, probably the most famous DAO is Constitution DAO, right? Where a bunch of people got together to buy the Constitution. And people even trust each other, even though they don't know each other, because they know that the DAO is baked into software. So we formed Tanaka DAO. So you can go to greattanaka.org/DAO. And basically, what the DAO does is it, first of all, it KYCs the donation to make sure that it's from a U.S. citizen or green card holder. The second thing it does is it issues new NFTs, right? So it issues NFTs to the donors as well as the volunteers. So they're kind of a basically provide some governance, right?
Mm.
I mean, so even I don't control the DAO, right? So it's controlled by the NFT holders. Oh, there you go, Tanaka DAO. Yes, there you go. You can see the different variations. We have 10,000 versions of them, and they have different rarities as well. And
Wow.
then
I
we
like
have
the one with
Litecoin
the
versions.
laser eyes.
We have Litecoin versions. We have Ethereum versions. We have a bunch of different ones, different versions of them. And
That's so cool.
yeah, thank you. And then and then um, uh, the other thing is, for voting for the DAO, we have to be a green card holder or a U.S. citizen. So
Mm-hmm.
the DAO functions as a kind of like a does the KYC, like know your customer,
Mm-hmm.
as well as kind of like gatekeeper on the issuing of the NFTs. So that's how we're using the DAO, and I predict that future campaigns are probably going to use a lot more DAOs just because it makes a lot of sense. It makes the compliance to the campaign financing a lot easier. And also, it's a really great way to build involvement versus traditional campaigns where you just like get a thank you, that's it.
Yeah. I may have to I may have to seriously consider that. So I will
Please do. And maybe one day, okay, let's say I'm successful. One day, the NFT might be worth something too, right? So you never know. You may make
I
money on it.
believe it. I believe it. You
So,
know, I'll tell you an interesting story. I was a very early supporter of Barack Obama when no one thought he should run. And I was one of his first donors. And I went to an event where he could only get like 100 people to show up. And I feel like, hey, it would have been amazing to have an NFT
yeah,
to commemorate. Like I was one of the
yeah,
first 1,000, that gave
exactly.
him money.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll buy early on the
There
Tanaka
you go.
train.
There you go. And one day it might be worth a lot. It's kind of like like the co-ops. You go to an event and they give you a co-op. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure if you know that, but basically it's like there's these you get this. It's not really an NFT, but it's like proof that you actually were at the event. It's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
that, right? So an NFT is basically it's like proof you actually supported the campaign, and some people get a lot because they volunteered or donated a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a way to. It's kind of like I don't know if you know, but Andrew Yang. By the way, he endorsed my campaign.
Mm-hmm.
He also formed like Golden DAO, but he also did Lobby 3, and those are forms of DAOs.
Mm.
And I think there are also, if I'm not mistaken, there are also NFTs involved as well. But I think one thing unique about us is that each of our NFTs are truly unique.
I love
And
it.
so yeah, and so it's kind of a fun way to get involved, and we're trying to bring innovation to politics as well.
Love it. Love it. Well, Greg, thank you so much for coming on the show. folks, if you want to learn more about Greg, go to his website, and you could also approval vote him on ofthepeople.us, which is my little nonprofit, and it has the links to his site, and just get to know Greg. I mean, we need more nerds in Congress, and
Absolutely, at
some
all
fresh
levels of government.
ideas.
At all levels of government. And by the way, speaking of approval voting, that's another thing, which is, I'm also looking to try to improve our voting system. So it's just a little bit of a nerdy thing, but you guys can go to my website and check out kind of like some thoughts on approval voting as well.
Love it. Greg, good luck to you on the 7th, and hopefully we'll have you back on the show to talk about the top 2 race.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate it, and thank you for your support. I really appreciate it.
You bet, man. With that, we'll say goodbye, nerds.
Goodbye, nerds.
See you later, buddy. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. That was Greg Tanaka. Ooh, camera needs to focus. Oh, there you go. No. Freaking Logitech. Come on, man. Ridiculous. All right. Greg, impressive dude. I like him. I can see why he got the good old Forward Party nomination or endorsement. And he's a smart dude. And his camera did not get blurry like mine keeps doing. I'm all for him. I will officially endorse Greg Tanaka for Congress from the Nerds for Humanity show's point of view. I know his competitor, Anna Eshu. I mean, I know of her. And, she's been there for a long time. And, since 1993. And you would think that the congressional representative from Silicon Valley would be pro-entrepreneurship, pro-innovation. And Greg doesn't just talk about it. I mean, the dude is issuing NFTs. He has a decentralized organization. He's studied engineering. He started tech companies. We need people who get it, especially representing the Silicon Valley. I also want to recognize some of the people that make this channel possible, which is our members. And then I also want to give a shout out to some of the trending candidates on ofthepeople.us. And by the way, if you liked Greg, there's a link to his OTP profile in the description. Go ahead and approval vote him so he can get more exposure on Of the People. Now, let's thank the people who make this channel possible, who help support the creation of nerdy content. And we're going to start with our highest level, our biggest supporter, Soldier One. He is a senior vice president, would not be here without Soldier One. So thank you, Soldier One. And then at the next level, we have our vice president, plural, Kristen Slevin, Bike, and Stephen Jones, also huge supporters. And then we have our hardcore level. We have Gene, David, DK, Jackalego, Kirsch, Mr. History, Byram, Mona, Susan, Vaughn, Yang, Tony, Robert, Dean, Stad, Galessa, Jay Perrin, AH, Jay Bryan, Dana, Jason, Parth, and Daniel. And by the way, this live stream is using StreamYard's software, and they are a supporter of the Nerds for Humanity channel. So thank you to StreamYard. If you do live streaming, check them out. I've been using them for a couple years now and find them quite reliable. Verified level, we have Lisa, Albert, Brandon, Peter, Arez, your mom, and Sophia, Mike, Jadwiga, Doris, Emerald, Ben, Rasta, James, Emma, Hui, Elizabeth, Ira, Shoni, Jameson, Dr. William, Karen, Monica, Ardent, Zemery, Mai, David, Brittany, Alexandra, Wana, Warren, Lucky, Kevin, Nell, and Toby. And our oldest nerds in terms of length of membership are Lisa, Jean, and Kristen. And our youngest nerds, Toby, Daniel, and Steven. So thank you to you all for making Nerds for Humanity possible. Now, We also need to look at some of the trending OTP candidates. So we're going to go to ofthepeople.us, and we're just going to give a shout out to people running for office who are trending on the OTP directory. So we have right now Rose Yee, Stephen Houlihan, Imani Oakley, Russ Russell, and Jay Chen. And in terms of our newest candidates listed, we have Corey Hepela, Colin Hardin, and Rose Yee. So, Lau, where is good old Greg Tanaka? Let's see. Greg, Control F. Greg. There you are. So he's down here. If you liked what you heard, go to his OTP profile and click this blue approve button, and then he'll show up higher on our list and get some more exposure. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye, nerds. Thanks for hanging out with me and have a great weekend. See ya.